Nia from Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is my favorite fictional character of all time, without a single doubt. She used to be the character in my profile image for a reason. My profile image is basically only reserved for characters I can relate to immensely. And cute girls, Emma Skye fits into that category. Why do I love Nia Xenoblade so much, though? Is it the fact that she is a cat girl? Yes, absolutely. Is it her personality? Yes, absolutely. Is it her Welsh accent? Yes, absolutely. Is it her design? Yes, absolutely. Is it her backstory? Yes, absolutely. And that's the part that I relate to the most and why Nia is my favorite character of all time. You first meet Nia in the very beginning of the game. She's super sassy and honestly just mean at points to Rex. You can also always tell that there's something she's hiding, but only based on the game deciding to linger on shots of her face or chest at certain points, or from some lines that could be taken in several different ways.
So, this is Torgoth.
It hasn't changed a bit.
This is where I'm going to start spoiling early game stuff for Xenoblade Chronicles 2. This is all stuff from Chapter 1. At the end of Chapter 1, when Jin kills Rex, Nia gets angry despite the fact that the group she's with has, according to the game, killed many people in order to steal their blades.
Jin! Why did you kill him? Why? What did Rex ever do to you? Jin!
There's a single line that makes her sudden anger at the death of Rex make a lot more sense. When Rex and Nia are talking just before arriving at the abandoned ship, she says,
I always thought people were pretty selfish by nature, but you, and you're alright too, kid. Not that different from me.
From just 2 or 3 minutes of talking to Rex, and his almost annoying level of optimism, her beliefs about humanity being completely bad were shaken. Then later on, when Rex awakens Pyra, Malos tells Nia to kill everybody on the ship. She refuses on the basis that they hadn't done anything wrong. This is showing that her beliefs were shaken more than just for Rex.
Now that we have finally obtained the Aegis, the fewer living souls know about it, the better.
I can't do that. These people haven't done anything wrong.
She's already gone through an entire character arc within the first hour and a half of the game just by starting to believe that there might be a few small issues with the whole wiping out all of humanity thing. She also goes out of her way to save Rex and Pyra from being killed by the Monoceros' guns, even at the risk of her own life. If Rex hadn't saved her in return, she would have died here. Even despite this, though, in Chapter 2, Nia still says that she wants to go back to Jin and Malos because they're
The closest thing I have to a family.
despite the fact that they literally tried to kill her. This is the first thing I find kind of relatable about Nia, the entirety of that situation. I'm not going to go into details because that's not important, but I used to be in a relationship with someone when I was in a very vulnerable position mentally and emotionally, and the person I was in a relationship with did take advantage of that. Because I was in such a bad place, though, I felt dependent on them, even despite the fact that they were a shitbag. After that, though, my own faith in humanity was legitimately super messed up. I was lucky I had friends to help me get out of the relationship in the first place, but afterwards, I was way too scared to really trust anybody, and I was quite frankly an asshole, even to my best friends in Reset and the person who's now my boyfriend. Thing was, though, he was determined to try and get me to trust him. I honestly found it annoying at times, but looking back, I'm incredibly grateful for his persistence, because the fact that I now trust not only him, but the majority of people again paved the way for me to become a much more positive person overall. I'm now one of those annoying people who doesn't automatically believe every single corporation or celebrity has malicious intent. How could I believe something so rational? Playing through Xenoblade Chronicles 2's first few chapters for the first time was somewhat difficult purely because of how weirdly relatable Nia's situation was to me. But now I couldn't be more grateful for the surprisingly realistic portrayal of what that was like, and I appreciate the beginning of the game more than I think most people would. It would be enough to make her my favorite character by that alone, but no, they had to go and add another incredibly relatable facet of her character. Just a warning, this next part will contain spoilers for every chapter up until Chapter 8 of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. If you plan on playing the game, skip the rest of this section because a ton of incredibly important stuff happens from Chapters 3 through 8 of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. In Chapter 3, the party meets up with this Van Damme fellow. He's a funny Australian man with a cool bird blade. He even gets added to the party, which was not something I expected. It's a theme in the Xeno series to have an NPC character with either a minor or major role with a name starting with Van. Vanguard in Xenoblade 1, Van Damme in X, and Van Damme again in 2. It was just surprising that Xenoblade 2's version of this was a party member, but that's just because they wanted you to grow more attached to him by the end of the chapter. Yeah, Monolith Soft pulls a Danganronpa. They get you to really appreciate Van Damme's character from the start to the end of Chapter 3 just to kill him at the end, telling Rex to run away with Pyra away from Malos and this guy named Akos.
Are you ready, Rex? Another lesson for ya! Something else you could do with a blade! Move it! Take Pyra and scram, kid!
Rex obviously doesn't run, and Pyra transforms into Mithra as a result and obliterates Malos and Akos' blades. That doesn't matter, though. What matters is Nia's reaction to Van Damme's death. Initially, this doesn't seem like anything major. Of course she's going to be sad about this. Van Damme literally went out of his way to tell her that he doesn't care if she was working with Torna, because regardless of that, she's a good person doing the right thing, at the very least from her own point of view. The most important part of her reaction, though, is that the game pans down to her chest. Normally in a game like this, that would be for fan service purposes, but this really isn't the right time for that, and regardless, Nia's not really designed to be used in that way. Literally the only visible skin on her entire body is her head. This is very, very intentional, though on a first playthrough it just looks natural enough that it could be an extension of her shocked reaction to seeing Van Damme literally stab himself with two scythes. In Chapter 4 we get a hot spring scene with Nia, Mithra, and Poppy. Nia is very purposely consistently staying very low in the water, coincidentally covering her entire chest area. It's not like this was the game designers trying to censor her because they censored Mithra just by covering her with steam. No, again, this is a very deliberate way for them to very subtly point out Nia's chest, and when Nia gets up to leave the hot spring, Mithra and Poppy look surprised about something.
Nia, are you? Well, yeah.
Do you want us to keep this quiet?
I'd appreciate it, yeah, for now.
Nia asks them not to tell anybody, and they agree because Mithra and Poppy are good people. In Chapter 5, Jin reveals that he's a blade and how he's tired of humans being the masters while blades act like they're slaves. Nia has a bit more of an understanding reaction than literally everybody else on the Titan weapon. That's all there really is to this in that chapter, though. In Chapter 6, Emperor Nile charges at Bana to try and prevent him from assassinating the Queen of Uraya and everybody else on the battleship, but ends up dying as a result. Nia asks Dromark to create a distraction for everybody, including Morag, who is sitting there begging her brother not to die, which is legitimately some of the best voice acting in this game.
I'm glad.
Majesty! Majesty! Your Majesty, please, no!
Your Majesty, I have failed you.
It can't be. To protect us, you... Please, wake up. Nio! Nio!
And once everybody leaves the room, Nia is seen healing him with a core crystal on her chest. Then the game just kind of brushes that off and tries to get you to forget about it until the next chapter. At the end of Chapter 6, Jin absolutely destroys Rex and Pyra agrees to go with him in order to save everybody else's lives. In the beginning of Chapter 7, Rex attempts to leave to go back to salvaging because he feels like a failure for letting Jin and Malos take Pyra. Nia slaps the shit out of him.
Me, a driver? In the end, salvaging is all...
You bloody idiot! Hurts, yeah? But that pain's nothing compared to what Pyra must be feeling right now. She went with those bastards knowing full well how much it would hurt. For our sake, not her.
And the King of Tantal tells Rex about the third Aegis sword. Gramps takes Rex to a place underneath Fonset Village where Blade's powers are limited. This makes not only for an incredibly annoying place in terms of gameplay, but a great place to drop a ton of exposition about the main party. This includes that Zeke has a piece of Pandoria's core crystal in his chest to keep him alive, and that Nia lived with a father and sister in Gormott before her sister died of some sort of illness. Nia's dad awakened all sorts of healing blades in an attempt to save his daughter's life, causing him to lose his title of Lord and forcing the three of them into poverty. In the end, none of the blades were capable of saving her, and in a last-ditch effort to keep part of her alive, he makes Nia eat some of her flesh, turning her from a normal blade into a flesh eater. If you've never played the game, a flesh eater is a blade with human cells, making the blade more powerful, but also mortal and seemingly more prone to illness, as can be seen with Minoth earlier in the game. This also makes it so the blade cannot return to their core once their driver dies.
Address me as Father.
Yes. Father.
Knowing that Nia is a blade is already a huge revelation, but the next fight also adds a ton to this. After defeating the incredibly annoying Phantasm bosses, you see the cutscene where everybody is struggling against them. Just when one of them is about to kill Rex though, Nia transforms into her blade form and saves him, finally revealing to the entire party that she's a blade. She thanks Rex for helping her see that she doesn't need to hide who she is, and then the game shows you that it has choreography on the level of the Star Wars prequels, and I am living for it. Later in the chapter, when everybody reaches Malos, who now has his Monado, he uses his powers to destroy Zeke's weapon, but Nia uses her powers to heal the weapon and protect everybody, since blade weapons are basically an extension of a blade's body. Nia then says that she could have used this power to save Rex in the beginning of the game, or Van Damme, and she shows a regret that people died because she was afraid of who she was.
I should have used this power earlier, but I was afraid. Afraid to go back to those days. Lives have been lost because I was afraid.
Then she says that she isn't afraid anymore, and she defeats Malos by literally weaponizing cancer.
What have you done to me?
I alter the replication rate of your body cells.
This is basically the end of this character arc. I'm not going to mention how she was friend-zoned by Rex, because that's already been complained about enough on the internet, and it's really not important to this video. Nia's arc for these several chapters is completely relatable to me as a trans girl. She's hiding her core crystal constantly, the only thing that really makes it obvious that she's a blade. She's terrified of being herself because society considers flesh eaters to be abominations, and she already had to run away from her home and the Ardanian military because of who she was. That all takes place about 10 years before this game's story, and even still a decade later, she's hiding who she is. She joins Torna because they accept her for who she is, but they take advantage of her, using her only to further their own goals and tossing her aside once her morals conflict with their own. And when she finds a group that really treats her as an equal, not some abomination to be feared, ironically including the leader of the Ardanian military, she becomes less afraid of being herself, because regardless of what the rest of the world thinks, she knows that she has all her friends there for her. Rex, Pyra, Dromark, Poppy, Zeke, Morag, Pandoria, Bridget, and actual Abomination. I relate to this immensely. I was terrified of being out as trans throughout most of middle school and all of high school. People, especially kids, treat trans people like they're meant to be feared, that they're unnatural, and that their struggles don't count for anything, which just isn't true. But that's just how society treats trans people, unfortunately. I know I was afraid of fully coming out until just a year or so ago, and I know for a fact that that's relatable to other trans people in that position too. I don't think Nia was made with relatability as specifically to trans people in mind, but you never know. I mean, look at the colors of a flesh eater core crystal. I'm joking. It's something that could apply to more than just trans people. I'm just stating how I find it relatable personally. So yeah, that's why Nia is the best fictional character of all time. Any questions? Too bad you don't get a say.